Hey, honey, how you doing?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm optimistic.
You are a very optimistic person in general.
I'm optimistic. So that's what we're talking about today is don't be so optimistic. I feel like I am a
Yeah, it's
person.
like turn down.
I'm a person who always sees the sunny side, the bright side of things, you know, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Why are you laughing?
Because that is very much so you.
It
And
is.
I'm always the looking for the threat or the
Oh, yeah.
the issue or trying to.
You're in defensive mode.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
always
wait a
like,
minute.
hold
You're
on
a
now.
skeptic. You're more of a skeptic.
I'm definitely more skeptical and you're optimistic, so
But when it comes to money and things of that nature, I'm much more of a realist.
yeah.
And I think that many times people are too optimistic about how they manage their own money.
Yeah, that's true.
And they give themselves more credit than they ought to give themselves.
Right.
Because I know best. Like I shouldn't. I know what the. I didn't mean to
You
say
said,
it like that.
I know best.
I did say that with a little enthusiasm.
You
Didn't I?
said, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. I know.
What I meant, I think
You said it with your full chest.
I did kind of, and I felt that, and then I was like, wait a minute, back
You were
up.
like, whoa.
I don't always know best, but I do know what is helpful. And I have to say it that way because I think we don't realize what is unhelpful in terms of our habits and our behaviors around money. And I've seen a lot. I think that's the other thing that I was trying to say is I've seen a lot. And so I just don't want people to miss certain warning signs around how they're managing their money.
As you say that, I think about false positives. You know, like sometimes, you take a test and this, thinking about, the body, you take a test and it gives you a false positive and you got to take it again. Mm-hmm. But being very optimistic can actually set you back if you're not paying attention to the details. And that can be a pretty costly mistake because, I didn't even spend that much, or, oh, no, we got it. Or the nonchalant kind of attitude can be, quote unquote, more optimistic. But then the reality is like, whoa, we don't got it. Or no, we can't do it.
So typically what happens is I'll ask someone in a coaching session, how much do you spend on dining out, for instance? And they will say, oh, I think about $500. And there's this whole attitude of, oh no, I shouldn't, like that seems like a big number, et cetera, et cetera. And then the exercise that needs to happen is a reality check. Is add it up for 30 days and see how much you actually spend.
And if it's like $1,100.
Exactly. Like it's typically, that's not even an exaggeration. It could really be double what they think.
Yes.
And so, and then they're like jaw drop, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I spent that much money on it.
They're like, whoa. I spent double.
Yes. And don't let it be a couple, because typically couples will say, well, he did, she did, they, all that. There's the finger pointing of it all, right? And so I think that we tend to want to believe that we are better at money than we actually are. And the reality check helps us to actually see that.
I mean, optimism in general, by definition, is a good thing. Because it's more of a positive view, a positive outlook, on a situation or life. And being optimistic is better than, in my mind, being pessimistic.
Okay, so the caveat that I think to that is be optimistic about your future and what you can do.
Right.
And take proactive steps to get there. But don't be optimistic and then do nothing.
Don't be ignorant.
Oh, there you go.
Don't be ignorant and think optimism is just going to guide you. Mm-hmm. Ignorance is not bliss when you're making decisions that, it's going to be fine. We're going to make more money. And then you make these decisions and each decision pushes you further back from your goal.
So here's how to shift from being overly optimistic around you're spending. So if you typically will say, I don't spend that much money, or we don't spend that much money, or it can't be that much, and you just assume that that is enough work, then that's the problem. The work you actually really need to do is add it up to see the reality of the situation. And that's where the realist in me comes out. And then see what the gap is, right? Like if you really are spending double what you think, that we need to fix that, right?
I think people will round down on their spending because they don't want to be realistic. Oh, well, I didn't spend that much. I didn't spend that much. And I tend to round up because I'd rather have a margin of error that, oh, well, I didn't spend as much as I thought I did, versus rounding down, because you round down, you can get caught. That margin can be the difference maker in overdraft fees or, different things that can happen. And I know if I will estimate over. So I know, okay, well, we're getting close to what we've budgeted for. And I know you and I, we will go back and we kind of reassess, and we'll do that in the moment.
So the other day when we were looking at the budget, and we have a couple of quick trips coming up, and we were talking about how much we think we need for those trips. And I said,
like
this
for
is
spending
how much,
money.
Yeah. So I said, this is how much we actually have for this particular trip. And you said, I don't really think that's enough. And I said, really? Why? Tell me more. And so I'm just trying to understand. And then, so you were sharing why this was going to be more of an expensive trip than I was expecting. And so then what I did was I went back and looked at some of the numbers and said, how can I increase this? And then I increased it by $200 in order for it to be more realistic based on what it is that you were saying. And so I think that checks and balances is necessary.
I think that's important because we had already budgeted for these trips that we're taking. And then I thought about where we were going.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, this is an expensive market. That is an expensive market. Like just for dinner or for meals or whatever, that is not going to be on par with what we need. And I think it's that yin and yang and that check and balance that made it such that, just imagine we hadn't done that and left it as it was, then went on these trips and then overspent. Versus saying, okay, well, let's go back. Let's check it and then go make an adjustment. And we come off that trip and we'll feel like, okay, we were right on par. And we'll know what our budget is, and we'll try and work within the parameters of that as well.
So one of the shifts I know that I made, just to be real specific and practical, is we had a dining out amount that we had from the previous month that I hadn't changed. And so I was like, well, we're going to be dining out when we go on this trip. So I'll just shift a little bit of that money into our vacation funds, because then it's going to be that's going to be more accurate, I guess is the way to put it. And I just think that if we just revisit it a little bit more, then we can probably find spaces.
I think that's a very practical thing that you're talking about there too, because sometimes people, if they look at their budget, they see those categories as fixed. And they're not fixed categories. If you have money in dining out and you're going to be taking some trips and dining out, you shift that money from the dining out portion to the vacation portion. It's not a static budget. It's dynamic. Categories can go up and categories can go down, but that's how you overall stay on track.
So I think another thing that we tend to do is that we overestimate, or we're very optimistic about our discipline and our habits and what's possible. And here is a reality check is, if you haven't done it up till now, what makes you think you're gonna do it now? So we all, okay, so when it comes to money, sometimes we're not as honest as we probably need to be. But it also,
it's gonna hurt.
We can see this in our food. If we want to lose weight, or in our exercise regimen, or whatever it is, in order for us to get our health in a certain framework. And it's like, if you haven't been doing it up till now, what makes you think you're going to keep doing it? So sometimes you need a coach. Sometimes you need to take a class. Sometimes you need a nutritionist. Sometimes you need to go to the doctor and get labs.
Sometimes you need to
track. Oh my gosh. So this is real. I'm going to just give you a window into my life. So I started tracking my food for a specific amount. It's some months. I'm not talking weeks. And I've been a person who tracks, but I got back into it a year ago, and I was like, wow, I am definitely not eating enough protein. And a year ago, I would have said, oh, I can't get to 100 grams of protein. I tracked it, and then I started seeing how I can get
How
it.
you can get
it
there.
informed me,
Yeah.
right? And then the other piece of this was, I'm probably not going to track for the rest of my life. Like, I'm not going to do it every single day. That's the reality. I can't pretend and say, oh, well, I'm just going to be tracking for the rest of my life. That's not realistic. It just isn't. And but
Now,
I
do
know,
think you may budget for the rest of your life.
but I know how to do what I need to do
Yeah.
and lock in. That is the other thing, is I know what foods to eat to get the protein
Yep.
or whatever it is I'm trying to get in. And I know the exercise that I need to do. And it is the discipline that, sometimes you need an accountability partner, a teacher, an instructor, some other person in your life to help you get there. And working as a team. Like I think that's a part of it. But sometimes we can be pretty optimistic about our discipline when we actually need to get outside help.
Yeah, and I think to that point, having something that is tangible, like a budget or budget tool that you utilize to track your spending, or in this case, if you're trying to, lose weight, gain muscle, have a app that you are actually putting things physically in. A proven system is better than, willpower at any given time or any given stage. So I think the outcomes and the results will be much better when you use something that is tangible versus in my mind, you write numbers down, or in my mind, I ate this, I ate that. And you're trying to keep it in your head when you can look at the physical numbers to say, oh, this is what I've spent versus what I have budgeted. This is what I have remaining. That will be a lot different than being optimistic and saying, oh, well, I only spent about $95 on this when you spent $135. And now you already have a delta, and so.
And so, it's interesting you say that, the app, because I was not a person. Before 2 years ago, I just didn't strength train. I did all kind of other physical activity, and I was good with it. And when I got an app that showed me how to progressive overload and showed me what I did previously and kept all of my exercises and all of that, I became a person who strength trained. I became much more disciplined with it because the app helped me. I knew I needed something extra, and I pay for it. I pay for it annually. And so I think that sometimes
that's
we need
a tool.
that.
That's a tool that you needed
exactly
to help take you to a place that you hadn't been before.
Exactly.
And tools are good things to utilize, because I remember my dad used to tell me all the time, the right tools make any job easy. And if you're trying to, in this example, you were trying to strength train, do something that you typically hadn't done, meaning lifting weights.
Yeah.
This was a good tool or a guide that made going to the gym and weight training a lot easier than it would have been previously.
Yep. So it helps. It's helping. And
Right.
sometimes you have to be honest about the fact that you need something to help you through.
I think another area that we are very optimistic in is the time trap. Like, oh, I've got time. Like people, to me, that's kicking the can down the road. Like, address today what you need to address today versus just pushing it down the road saying, oh, I got time. I can, if I overspend or I overeat or whatever, I can make it up later.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where don't start next year. Start now, because, life is short. And the more I realize that, the more I take action today. It puts immediacy on things when, today, it's better done today than to focus on tomorrow, because you can count on what's happening today.
Yeah.
Versus planning for tomorrow, because as we know, tomorrow is not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. And I think that you can't buy time.
Yeah.
The one thing about, let's just put it in context of finances, is like, I want to save for my retirement future, because before, let's say, it as a higher priority than saving for college funds, because I cannot get a loan for retirement. But my kids don't want this to happen, but my kids can get loans for college. And I want to take care of my retirement future so they don't have to take care of me. And so I think that when we consider that when time is on your side, use it to your advantage. Use it to your advantage because you cannot get it back, and use it wisely.
And I think about the examples all the time of someone who could have started saving or investing at 25, but they chose to wait until they were 40 or 45. And then they may make more money and they may feasibly put more money in between, let's say, 40 and 65 versus someone who put money in from 25 to 40.
Yeah.
That person who started early at 25 and spent 15 years of putting money in versus someone who started later and spent the same 15 years and put more money in, the person who started sooner is going to have more money because of compounded interest and time that works to their advantage when you start early versus if you start late, time works to your disadvantage.
Yeah.
So don't put it off tomorrow thinking like, oh, I've got time. Do it today. And that's the one thing that I've told our kids. I said, listen, if I can give you the cheat code, start a Roth today.
Yes.
You know.
I knew you was going to bring that up.
Because I think I say it every episode. Say something about a Roth. Start today before your income reaches a point where you can't contribute or you have to go through a backdoor Roth or other means. And, you know, we were talking to one of our daughters because she's about to start work. And I was looking at her 401k and the company's plan and strategies. And we're already telling her, OK, this is the strategy. You need to utilize this to do this versus that. Then go over here. But we're here to help guide her where we didn't have people helping to guide us. And she has the benefit of time on her side.
Yeah.
And because we know her, and we know long term, she has other goals, plans, objectives. We want her to set herself up today
for success.
To put herself in a position to act upon some of those other things that we know she wants to do later in life.
So, you know, I think, I don't know if you would, I don't think this is necessarily a mistake. So I'll just answer it for myself. I know that when we were talking about this prior to starting the episode, you were talking about that, you know, we all make mistakes. And I'm just curious because you do bring up the Roth IRA. Do you feel like it was a mistake not starting sooner?
Mistake is a hard one to say it was a mistake. I just think we were working with the cards we were dealt at that time.
Okay.
And if I were to go back, I think I might have pushed a little more aggressively to start sooner.
Okay.
I may have shifted some things we were doing or just, you know, modify how we were approaching it, even if it was just balancing between the Roth and our 401k, you know, by putting in up to the match in the 401k and then like funding the Roth as fully as we could. So I think I would have my strategy would have shifted.
Right.
You know, knowing what I know today, had I known that, you know, then I would have just shifted strategy.
Yeah.
And so now I feel like when you know better, you can do better. And because I know better, I'm going to train my kids to do better.
Right.
So they don't have to have regret saying, well, I should have started it, you know, when I was 22 or, you know, she actually started when she was like 18, 19, somewhere around there. Maybe it was 20.
I think she was 20.
But if we had started when we were 20 versus when we were 40 or whatever, I don't think it was that far. But
no, we were in our 30s.
Yeah. But the point is, my strategy would have shifted.
Yeah.
But when you talk about mistakes, I think people look at mistakes sometimes in the wrong way. Because they say, oh, I messed up. I made a mistake. It's like mistakes are good if you look at them for what they are. Take it as a point of learning, make a modification, shift your behavior. Don't continue to make that mistake.
Yeah.
And if you learn from it in that regard, it's good. But if you keep making the same mistake over and over and over, it's not a mistake anymore. It's just a new habit. It's just a new way of doing things for you that you're trying to call a mistake, but it's really just your behavior.
And that's when I think you need intervention.
Yes.
That's when oversight, talking to someone, getting a mentor, having a professional look things over, that kind of stuff. That's when I think that that's important, or getting a tool. You're going to have to shake it up, because if you have habits that are not helping you get where you want to be financially, you need something to interrupt it. I almost said intervention, but that's not, it's not that deep. You know what I'm saying? Unless there's gambling involved or there's major secrecy or whatever it is. But like, I do think most of the time you just need an interruption into this habit that isn't helping you. And I like to see habits as helpful or unhelpful. And if you think about, is this habit helping me or is it not helping me? You will know. You will know if this is something that needs to change.
Look, well, I guess I got to say this now. You know, we're talking a lot about money and habits, and this is the For Better and Worth podcast where we talk about money and relationships.
Right.
And you know, I think I was being optimistic with our relationship.
Say more.
Because, you know, we had a couple dust ups recently, but I realized that some of it was because I wasn't really communicating what was on my mind. Even though I think I'm a good communicator, but it could be a mistake where I thought, well, I'm gonna just keep it to myself, because if I say something, then it's gonna create a problem. And then it became like a habit.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah, I ain't like that, but you know what? I'm gonna just let it go, because if I say something, it's gonna create a problem. So now it was like a behavior that I was like repeating. So I wasn't learning from that example, saying, you know, hold on, like, we've been together a long time. We need to talk about this thing. You know, this is what I was thinking. And I've learned about you is that I'm usually on steps 4, 5, and 6, and I haven't talked to you about steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you may be operating on steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and I need to slow down and help bring you along to steps 4, 5, and 6. So you are on the same plan as I am.
Because you're a visionary. And I'm the person who's the practical application. How does that work in everyday life?
You're the tactical, how we do it.
Yes.
But it's the strategy and the tactics that work together to help create success.
And you know how we interrupted that? So we had the dust up, or we had a moment where we were like, okay, I don't really like you right now. You get on my nerves. Okay, let's just.
And I was like, well, what you want to do? We can get down.
It's really. And I said, okay, you want to wrestle? You want to wrestle? But how we interrupted.
We can wrestle.
How we interrupted that was, I was like, come on, let's go to dinner.
Yeah.
Let's get out of our normal routine, away from everyone. Don't let anybody come with us, and let's just talk.
Us. Yep.
And because you know what that does, it feels your love language, your need, to have quality time. And then it feels my need to seek understanding. And so, like, I think that we have to interrupt it, and somebody has to be willing to do that.
Yep.
And so if you see financial habits that are not helpful, somebody has to be willing to interrupt the bad cycle.
It's almost like somebody has to blow the whistle and throw the flag, be like,
right.
Foul.
That's right.
Penalty.
Exactly. White flag.
Right.
So I feel like we don't do enough of that. I think life goes so quickly. You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes we want to skip steps. Like, I think the other thing that we do sometimes is that we're always thinking it has to be a faster way. Like, does it take all that? Like, does it really take all that time?
Yes, it does take all of that. Can we go
faster? Can we skip this and all of that? And I just think we have a problem with patience. And so we're overly optimistic about what it's going to take. We don't want to do all of the work. And that is the honest truth. And it does take some heavy lifting. Like, you could have been willing to say, Erica, I don't feel like going. I don't want to go. And because it takes work for us to have communication. You know what I mean? And so I think that we have a problem with being patient and with the process, because habits that are formed take time to unlearn and learn new habits.
Well, I think it's almost the generation and the time we live in, because everything is is in a microwave. You know, like people, they skyrocket to success and they don't show any of the work that was involved, you know. And I remember, like, in school, they were always like, show your work. You could have the answer, but they want to know, here's the problem, show your work and how you got to the answer.
Right.
And we don't do a lot of showing your work. It's like, here is where we were and here is where I am. And all you see is the answer, but none of the work is shown. And sometimes you need to see the work that went into something and what was involved, because I know, like, back in school, the teachers will say, oh yeah, well, you got the right answer, but this part right here was wrong. You know, you made an error here, and they were able to correct that. So even though you were able to get to the answer, there was still something wrong with your process, because the process isn't always perfect. And, you know, we are always progress over perfection here. And so sometimes, you know, you got to identify that mistake, fix it along the way while you're being optimistic. And then you can still get to that outcome and that answer.
Yeah, if we are willing to go so quickly that we refuse to show the work or do the work, then we're easy targets for getting taken advantage of financially, right? So that all of the get rich quick schemes, you know what I mean? Those things come because we don't want the slow path to be the answer. No one really wants to go slowly to get to where they want. I mean, if we could just snap our fingers. Do you remember that movie, that show, where she
I Dream of Jeannie.
I Dream of Jeannie. And she could twitch her nose and then all of a sudden things would change.
You bringing references that it's a whole lot of people.
I know they don't know what it is, but she would twitch her nose and she would hit her head, like she would nod her head and then things would change. And I wish that I could do that and like eliminate people's debt. Like that would be awesome. But the truth is that it took time to get into debt.
It's going to take time to get out of debt.
It's going to take you a whole lot more time to get, because you can go get an auto loan tomorrow. But it's going to take you years to get out of debt.
It's easy to get into debt.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. It requires
easy.
Discipline and intentionality to get out and to get out quickly. And so, of course, it would be lovely to live in this microwave society where everything is just so fast. But I think the challenge is facing the reality that isn't always the best way. And I think habits that have taken you a while to hone in on are the best ones, because those are the ones that last.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that last. Budgeting is not a big deal for me anymore. And so, but it took time for that to become the case.
Yeah, and with investments take time. You know, the law of averages and dollar cost averaging says, you know, that over time your money will always yield returns, and typically it's 7 to 8 years. The rule of 72 to see your money double. 7 years is, I mean, that's a reasonable time. I mean, it's a long time, 7 or 8 years to see your money double, but it's not going to happen overnight, you know, where people want to put, you know, $10 in and get 2 million out of it like overnight. That's not how money and life works.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is like our energy and our energy and patience to see, we will see a house being redone in a 30 minutes on a TV screen.
Right.
And so we think it's
But it
easy.
took weeks.
Or even months.
Yes.
Right? Or we see one person go from this size and she loses 50 pounds all in a 30-second clip. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, it must be easy. Or you see somebody make a meal and you're like, oh, look at the ingredients. And then you see the meal prepped version, all of it done. And it took her hours, right? Like all of this stuff, we get to see it in these snapshots. But the truth is, it took a lot of time to get there. Yeah. And even with this podcast, I think there was a part of us in the very beginning, we were thinking, oh yeah, this will be great. This is our little thing we can do together and all that. And it takes hours.
Go from nothing to 2 million followers.
But it takes hours for us to produce an episode. between the two of us and the work that we have to do. And so I think that we can really be optimistic about a lot. And if we kind of check ourselves a little bit on, is this realistic, optimistic, or am I thinking about this in a negative way? That's a good way to check ourselves.
It brings something back. A recent conversation I had with one of my nephews. Mm-hmm. And he was talking to me about his life and where he was and where he wanted to go, and how he looked at our life and saw some of the things that we've been able to do and how it inspired him and motivated him to do some things. And the one piece of advice I told him, I said, you have to stay committed to the process, because you can't say you want to do something and not remain committed to the process and see it through. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people say they want something, but they don't remain committed to the process and they don't see it through.
Right.
Something happens, it takes them off course, and then they end up going in a completely different direction. Versus something happens, it takes them off course, they course correct, make the necessary adjustments, get back on course, and continue down the road to meet the goal that they set for themselves to accomplish the thing they wanted to accomplish. So I was like, it's the same thing with money, relationships, getting out of debt. You have got to stay committed to the process, because there's always going to be something, unexpected expense, another debt that you've incurred, an emergency that arises that will take you off. Mm-hmm. But you have to get back on course. You have an argument with your spouse or your significant other, or something that takes you away from unity.
Yeah.
And you have to stay committed to the process and see it through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to say that my make it worth it is, I love optimism. I think that's great. It keeps your mind in a positive space. But I think we just have to check our optimism. Like, you can trust but verify, right?
Yes.
So you can trust that it's possible for you, whatever this thing is, or this could be true. But let me verify that that is the case. Let me, pressure test my optimism with someone else or a tool or history or what have you, and just see, is my optimism warranted in this situation? But I always want somebody to be optimistic about their future and their vision and their goals and the possibilities that are before them, without feeling like they can't do that. Like, I don't want that part of it, but I think that we need to pressure test a little bit our optimism to just see, does it hold weight? Is it sturdy enough to keep me going forward? What about you,
That's
babe?
interesting. I like that. But I think my make it worth it is like, I like optimism. What was I saying? Optimism.
I have no idea what you were saying.
I like being optimistic.
There you go.
And I think I would tell people to mix in a little bit of skepticism. Because to me, skepticism causes you to pause. And sometimes taking a pause is well warranted, because a pause can help you identify if you're still going in the right direction, if you're still doing the right things. Like I told my nephew, like, stay committed to the process. And if you're a little skeptical, it helps you stop and pause and reassess and then stay on the right track. So
I think it's also, we don't know our own blind spots.
Yeah.
So when you're a skeptic, you're like curious about, what am I missing here? Or
like what is really going on here?
Yeah.
What is this really about? Or it forces you to seek out more information.
Exactly. I love it.
And I think that's always a good thing, is to seek out more information, because then when you get more information, you can become really why I'm struggling today.
Optimistic.
You can really become optimistic.
Yes.
About where you want and need to go.
That's right. Well, this has been good, honey. I'm optimistic that you'll get to say it freely without tripping over the letters in the word.
Look, we all are a work in progress. So
yes, absolutely. Anyway, so this is good. I'm hopeful that people will really uncover some of their blind spots and slow down a little bit. So until next time.
We're out.